each Saturday, where we catch up with Leith Van Onselen, Chief Economist at the MB Fund, MB Super, from macrobusiness.com.au. We are asking of late Leith to come up with a economic clown or economic champion each week. We've had a couple of clowns. We're about to get to a champion in a moment or two, but not before we get to talk about Australia facing energy Armageddon. Hello, my friend. I hope you're well.
Yeah, g'day, Luke. Yeah, well, all good down here. Thanks, mate. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. Look, the question of our energy crisis, and it is, I think, in the minds of many, a crisis. I don't know where it was during the election campaign. I don't want to revisit that at all. But I mean, what's going on here? Is it simply the fact that the government collects tax from workers and gives it back to workers in the way of some kind of assistance to pay their power bills? Is that why people don't see the train coming, or what is it? Because we're in a hell of a mess.
Oh, absolutely, mate. So, anyone who pays an electricity bill or a gas bill knows that your bills have surged. And the only reason why we've had any relief is because the government's doled out billions of dollars of our own money, like basically returned our taxes in short-term subsidies, but it's not fixing the underlying problem. Now, as we all know, the Albanese government set a ridiculously unrealistic target of having 82% of Australia's electricity generated by renewables by 2030. Now, if we're going to do that, it means we obviously need to shut down our coal-fired generation pretty much. Now, some of Australia's states have gone even further. So, where I live in the clown state of Victoria, Victoria's legislated a 95% renewable energy target by 2035, so that's just in a decade. South Australia has set a 100% renewable energy target by 2027, so that's in 2 years, right? Now, these targets are completely, illogical. They defy reality. And the reason for that, Luke, is that renewable energy is weather dependent and it's intermittent, and it cannot be relied upon to provide power whenever it's needed. And we actually witnessed that this week, because Eastern Australia, as is so often during winter, it happened last year in New South Wales, the entire Eastern Australia, so talking, Brisbane, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia and, ACT, it experienced a wind drought, and it lasted for days on end. Now, what a wind drought is, as I said, it often happens during winter. It's when you basically have very low wind, which means you get very low wind generation from wind turbines. And this has coincided with obviously being winter, where you've got shorter days and you get less sunshine, so you obviously get less solar. Now, I've actually got some data here which I pulled off the National Energy Market, which is basically the federal government's website, which tracks where all energy comes from.
Yeah.
And it showed that in the 48 hours between 11th and 12th of June, and to be honest with you, I could have picked the 12th or 13th of June, but, when I was writing this up, I could have replaced this with another set which said exactly the same thing. But wind and solar combined over that 48 hours provided only 14% of Australia's electricity generation, because we had the wind drought, and battery storage only provided 1%, right? So that's 15% if you count batteries. Now, fossil fuels, on the other hand, because we are in the middle of winter, provided 74% of Eastern Australia's electricity generation in the 48-hour period. Now, that is coal 60% and gas. I've left hydro out of there because hydro we can't scale it up. It's just basically it's there every day. But the fact of the matter is that the federal government wants to get rid of our coal and gas, well, coal predominantly in the next few years, and replace it with this renewable stuff. But the renewable stuff doesn't supply when we need it. And this was shown this week. And, for example, at 7:50 p.m. on Thursday night, when obviously the sun had gone down, only 3% of the whole Eastern Australia's electricity generation came from wind. The solar was zero, obviously, because there's no sun. And batteries only provided 2%. This is at 7:50. This is a snapshot. Meanwhile, coal, 54%, gas, 23%, combined contributed 77% of Eastern Australia's generation. So the hilarious thing here, Luke, is earlier this week in Victoria, and I'm using Victoria, obviously I'm not talking to a Victorian audience, but this is relevant. Victoria experienced an unexpected outage at one of its old coal-fired generators, and it basically led to the renewables lobby coming out saying, see, coal's unreliable, therefore we need to expand renewables and to get off coal, because coal cannot be trusted because there was a breakdown, right? So there's this outfit, I call them a propagandist at Renew Economy. They just write less garbage about renewables all the time and just denigrate any sort of fossil fuels.
Good on you.
And they wrote an article which said, quote, The Yallourn coal plant outage, quote, underscores the urgent need to build enough solar, wind and storage to replace them and highlights the folly of sweating ageing coal assets past the use-by dates. That's a direct quote. Now, hilariously, when this article came out, the Muppet who wrote this wrote it during a wind drought when the renewables crashed to almost zero, and they couldn't see they couldn't see the irony that they're calling coal unreliable because there was a outage of one of the generators, when literally we had a wind drought and coal and wind and solar combined were providing bugger all electricity. And the reality here, Luke, is that the most unreliable part of the energy system is actually intermittent weather-dependent renewables, because they only work when the sun shines, the wind blows, and we never know when the wind's going to blow, and the sun only shines during the middle of the day, and if it's overcast, you get very little of it. Yeah. Yet the government and these lobby groups and everyone are trying to say we need to get rid of our stable baseload power and just basically, rely on the wind, which may or may not arrive, and the sun, which obviously during winter is pretty unreliable. And these same people won't admit it, that ageing coal-fired power plants remain the foundation of the country's electricity supply, and that was proven this week when renewables failed and they could not cover the gap. So it's crazy stuff, mate. And so what I've been saying over and over again is, instead of going down this road, we need reliable baseload power. Otherwise, we will literally face blackouts and soaring energy prices. Now, the way I see it, Luke, we've got two options. First of all, we could replace or refurbish the existing coal-fired generators. So they obviously do need renovation. They're very old, etc. But all the transmission's already built, right? So all the infrastructure's already there. But yes, they do need some work. And that honestly is my favourite option.
I'm with you. I was drinking I don't want to say the nuclear Kool-Aid, but I will, because I understand then you can just go your hardest and have generation knowing it's emissions free, if that's a thing, have that everywhere. But look, I think that argument was probably lost. It was probably lost on misinformation and poor salesmanship. It seems to me our only option, and again, the mother all scare campaigns, but you don't have to do much, high efficiency, low emission coal. And if people are so worried about the emissions that come from coal, then whatever we burn here, reduce what we export by that. And that won't even touch the sides, but that we don't have to rewire anything. That's $1 trillion potentially. This to me is a no-brainer. I'm with you.
Yeah, 100%. So the fact of the matter is, yes, coal is carbon intensive. 100% it is. But Australia exports 5 times as much coal as we consume domestically. So why not just export a little bit less and burn more ourselves, and the world's climate would be no worse off, right? No, but then again, I actually think we should probably go down the nuclear road as well, but it'll take a while to do, obviously, because, nuclear is the only way to achieve low emissions and stable, reliable power. Like, the only way you can get both is through nuclear, because you can run it 24/7. It's not weather dependent. It's zero emission. Yes, the upfront costs are very high, but so are renewables and storage. And renewables and storage, I mean batteries and, building pumped hydro stations and this sort of stuff. That stuff is completely unreliable and intermittent, and it's going to cost a bomb. Whereas we could actually just build some, nuclear generators where some of the old coal-fired generators were, where there's transmission lines and that sort of thing. Yes, it'll cost a lot of money, but, it's going to be stable. It'll give you a 60-year lifespan, whereas renewables have to be replaced, 15 to 20 years. So you have to keep replacing them. Batteries you've got to turn over all the time. Solar and wind turbines don't last more than 20 years. So the environmental footprint of nuclear is way better. One Bunnings-sized warehouse-sized generator can create the same amount of energy as probably 400 plus wind turbines, which are spread out all over the place. You need concrete footings. You need to clear a whole bunch of land.
Yeah.
All the resources that go into that is insane. Now, it was very interesting this week, Luke. So UK has gone down the same net zero delusion as us, and they've got a guy called Ed Miliband, who's their energy minister. He's just like Chris Bowen. He's an absolute zealot. But even the UK came out at the start of the week, and they said that the renewables aren't working properly. It's not reliable, so we're going to build out nuclear. So even the UK has gone down this road. And Ed Miliband, who's just as much of a zealot as Chris Bowen, said he declared, quote, a golden age for Britain's nuclear industry. So how is it that Australia, that holds the world's largest deposits of uranium, has banned nuclear power, banned nuclear as a source of generation, when these other countries, like pretty much everywhere else in the world, bar us in New Zealand, are going down the nuclear road? Like we literally have the world's biggest deposits of uranium, so we could go down this road. And we're the biggest coal exporter in the world, so we could be doing that as well. And we're obviously we're the second biggest gas exporter. But the stupid thing here, Luke, is that we deny ourselves access to our own energy, our own coal, our own gas, and our own uranium.
Yes.
And we sell all this stuff to the rest of the world. We give the rest of the world cheap energy, but then we starve ourselves, and then we say, oh no, we can't burn any of this stuff. We've got to go down this renewables road. Yeah. Which in times of winter when there's not much sun, or we have these wind droughts which happen regularly, they just don't work.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. And the vested interests and the people with daddy's billions who get the government subsidies in the billions and just make the easy ride. I mean, there'll be a day. Tell me who the champion of the week is. I think we've got some champion type music here. Who have you gone with, mate?
Mate, I've gone with journalist Chris Ullman.
Yes.
Now, former ABC. Now he does some stuff with Sky and some others. But Chris Ullman gave a fantastic. He's been right on this energy stuff, and he's done excellent work, done a great documentaries, etc. And anyway, he was on the John Anderson podcast a week ago, and I watched the whole thing, and it was fantastic. And he actually predicted pretty much what happened this week, right? So literally a week before it happened, he said that he said basically, I tell you what's going to happen to the East Coast energy market. We are running our last coal-fired power plants about as hard as we can, is what he said. He said one day when the sun's not shining and the wind's not blowing, and probably in the middle of winter when it's really quite cold, one of those big coal-fired power plants is going to give out. It will break because of the stress it's under, and then we'll see the energy ministers come out and say, see, we told you old power broke down, we need more renewables, that sort of thing. And that is exactly what happened this week, all right? So one of, as I said, Victoria's coal generators went down. The renewables lobby came out and said straight away, see, coal's unreliable, this is why we need more renewables. And this is exactly what Chris Ullman predicted a week before it happened. And it has played out exactly as he said. And, anyone who wants to learn more on this topic, I highly, recommend that you go on YouTube, for example, and search for Chris Ullman and renewables and power and energy and that sort of thing. He's done some fantastic work in this area.
Yes, yeah, he really has. Righto, mate. Have a great weekend. Take care. Talk to you in a week's time.
Yeah, cheers. Cheers, Luke.
Thank you, Leith Van Onselen. Chris Ullman, big fan of his work, as you well know.